Yesterday we started learning the dinim of Bedikat Chametz, searching for the Chametz. Now, in a general idea, once somebody leaves their house within 30 days of Pesach, means right after Purim, they have an obligation to do a Bedikat Chametz somewhere. Because once 30 days of Pesach comes, you automatically, on your body, there's an obligation to do Bedikat Chametz. Now, normally people do it the night before Erev Pesach. That's when the normal time of Bedikat Chametz is. What happens if somebody is leaving their home this week? So it's within 30 days of Pesach. And they're going away to Israel for Pesach, or they're going to Europe, or they're going to East, whatever. They're going out of town for Pesach. So the din is like this. Technically, they have to do Bedikat Chametz the night before they leave without a bracha. The only time you can make a bracha is when you make Bedikat Chametz the night of Bedikat Chametz, which is the night right before Erev Pesach. The night of Erev Pesach, so to speak. Anytime you make a Bedikat Chametz before then, you don't make a bracha. So what happens if somebody's leaving tomorrow morning, they're leaving to wherever, for the entire Pesach, they're not coming back during Pesach. They have an obligation to do a Bedikat Chametz, like we said. Now, yesterday we learned, or the other day, that those rooms that you're selling to the guy, those rooms you don't have to do Bedikat Chametz in. But you still have an obligation to do a Bedikat Chametz. So what do? So you take, let's say, you're not coming back during Pesach. If you're coming back during Pesach, you have to clean the whole house for Pesach and check the whole house because you're going to be there during Pesach. But what happens if you're going away now for 2 months or whatever? So the night before you leave, you take one room, cleanest room in the house, and you do Bedikat Chametz there without a bracha. Then you fulfilled your obligation of doing Bedikat Chametz. And that's it. Or, let's say you're going to be in a place the night of Erev Pesach. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're going to go to an Airbnb or a hotel room, and you're going to be there, let's say, a week before Pesach, over Pesach, or a day before, it doesn't matter. So then, really, in your house here, you don't have to do anything. The night of Bedikat Chametz, where you're going to be, then if it's yours, if you own it, or renting it, which is owning, then you make a Bedikat Chametz with a bracha. With 10 pieces of bread, like we'll learn, then you can do Bedikat Chametz with a bracha, because you're doing, then you don't have to do it the night before you leave here. Because again, this house you're selling, so really you don't need to do Bedikat Chametz in the houses you're selling, like we learned yesterday. But you have to do a Bedikat Chametz. So if you're going to be able to do a Bedikat Chametz Thursday night, not Thursday, the night before Pesach, which this year is Sunday night, so then if you're able to, you come Sunday night with a bracha and you do Bedikat Chametz. So what happens if somebody's going, let's say, to their in-laws for Pesach, or to their parents for Pesach, and they want to be able to make Bedikat Chametz with a bracha? So now, the fact that you're helping your father or father-in-law checking your Chametz is not your obligation. It's his house. It's his obligation. But what happens if a day before Pesach, let's say you're staying in a room. They give you a room and 2 rooms in the house to stay. So let's say a day before Pesach, you come to your father or father-in-law and you say, you know what, here's $1. I'm renting the room from you. So now when Bedikat Chametz night comes, it's your room. You're renting it. It's yours. If you're renting it, then that night you could do Bedikat Chametz with a bracha. Because then it's yours. You rented it. What?
If you do what you were talking about earlier, the Bedikat Chametz, say 15 days before you leave.
Mm-hmm. No, the night before you leave, you do it. Let's use 15 days. Yeah.
The night 15 days before Pesach. Would you save that Chametz for Bior Chametz? Okay,
so now, I was just going to come to that, just finishing this. No. So again, if you're going to be renting a place where it's yours, then the night of Bedikat Chametz, you make a bracha better. Now, if somebody's traveling, let's say from here to New York for Pesach, and they're going to do Bedikat Chametz the night before they leave their house, I tell people they should not put out 10 pieces of bread. Why do I say that? Because I have personal experiences that people called me that they put out the 10 pieces of bread. They're going to burn it at Pesach in New York. Yeah, they're going to burn it at Pesach with the Chametz. They got busy. They forgot to burn the Chametz. Now they open up the suitcase in the middle of this story, not one or two, a lot. They open up the suitcase in the middle of Pesach and they found 10 pieces of bread, which is a kezayis of Chametz, which you're even by your own by your matzah. Okay, technically you sold the Chametz, it's not bad. So therefore I tell people, you want my opinion? Don't put out the 10, because halachically you really don't have to, it's a custom to put out. But here you, by putting out the 10 pieces of bread, unless if you somehow make a note that you won't forget to burn the Chametz at Pesach, otherwise you're going to have a big problem because you're going to find Chametz in there during Pesach. And that's really bad because you own the Chametz. So, but that's the concept of Bedikas Chametz. Once you leave within 30 days of Pesach, you don't have to do Bedikas Chametz. What happens if somebody left before Purim? They went away for 2 months before Purim, so they left before 30 days of Pesach. So then the halacha is, you don't have an obligation to do Bedikas Chametz. You don't have an obligation to do Bedikas Chametz because it's before 30 days, and now you don't only have any rooms that are yours that have Chametz in it. So technically, you wouldn't have to do any Bedikas Chametz whatsoever. What?
To put out the 10 pieces is to find the 10 pieces, right? Not to necessarily, you have to burn it, but the main concept is to find the 10 pieces?
No.
It's to burn it?
No. None of the above. It says in Shulchan Aruch that there is a minhag to put out 10 pieces of bread, even though halachically you don't have to, because the mitzvah is to search for chametz. The mitzvah is not to find chametz. The mitzvah is to search for chametz. There's no mitzvah. Bedikas chametz means to search for chametz. You don't find. It doesn't mean you didn't do the mitzvah. Now, Alter Rebbe brings down, there's a minhag Yisrael and minhag Yisrael Teirei. He says even though really you don't have to, but minhag Yisrael Teirei, and this is the minhag that they didn't do, they put out 10 pieces of bread. Why do you put out 10 pieces of bread? So first of all, in the Gemara aspect of it, because the Gemara in Pesachim discusses a few pages, what happens, you put out 10 pieces of bread and you found 9. You put out 10 pieces of bread and you found 11. What the Gemara says, you saw a mouse take 1 piece of bread and this, and then another mouse came. Is it the same mouse? Is it not the same mouse? One's black and one white. Is it the same mouse that switch? Is it the mouse switched the bread to one another? There's a whole discussion in the Gemara. So the Gemara's example is always 10 and 9 or 10 and 11. The Gemara always speaks about hiniach eser u'matzah teisha or matzah achadas or whatever the Gemara talks about. So why does the Gemara talk 10 pieces? Why not 5 pieces? What's this difference? Because Kabbalistically, and according to Chassidus, Bedikas Chametz is to search for the internal Chametz. Like we're learning, the Yetzer Hara is called Chametz. It's nash, gaiva, haughtiness, evil, sorts of all evil. In fact, the Gemara in many places says, the Gemara's expression, mi ma'akev, who stops a person from keeping Torah mitzvahs, sa'or shebe'isa, the yeast in the dough, meaning the Yetzer Hara, which is because yeast makes it rise and blow up, that's the Yetzer Hara. So according to Kabbalah and Chassidus, there's an inyan of searching for the 10 pieces, meaning the 10 keiches of the nefesh, the 10, like many tzaddikim, the Alter Rebbe had one small room, it took him Bedikas Chametz the whole night. He could have built the house in that night. But it does an internal investigation to seek out all the chametz. So therefore there's a minhag, and that's one reason. Another reason is that when you burn the chametz out of Pesach, by having a kezayis of chametz, then you're actually getting a mitzvah of burning chametz. Because you're destroying chametz, which the amount of chametz which you're transgressing for owning and Pesach is a kezayis, which is again 1 ounce. So The custom of putting out 10 pieces of bread really has nothing to do with the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to search. Especially if you're not doing it the night of Bedikat Chametz, you're not even making a bracha. It's just you have an obligation to search for Chametz, which you're doing. So if you want to be Mekayim a mitzvah, tashbisa, burning the Chametz, so then you have a kazayis. So then it's another interesting thing. When you put out the 10 pieces of bread, it's brought down in halacha, if you want to do it, so to speak, properly, all the pieces together should have a kazayis. Because then you get a mitzvah burning chametz. But each piece should be smaller than a kazayis. Shouldn't take 10 big pieces. Why? Because if you put out each piece a kazayis, and you can't find one, you have to look a whole night until you find one. Until you find the missing one. If it's less than a kazayis, the piece, so then bittul is enough for it. Bittul doesn't help for a kazayis. Bittul will help, nullifying the chametz will help for something smaller. So it says you're supposed to put out 10 pieces of bread. Altogether they should have a kazayis, but each one individual should have less. Now what do you want?
My point was that you could theoretically fulfill the minhag aspect of 10 pieces and burn it the same night. Meaning it's just Bedikat. You could just destroy it right then and there.
If you put out 10 pieces of bread and burn it that night, the question is, are you mekayim the mitzvah tashbisa then if you're going to be eating and owning more chametz later? That's a separate issue. But technically, yeah, if a guy wants to put out 10 pieces of bread and then burn it that night or the morning before he leaves, yeah, they could do that too. But even then, bittul chametz, that whole thing that you say by bittul chametz, by burning, it has to be done out of Pesach. Because you're going to be owning chametz, eating chametz, touching chametz, you're going to be owning, what are you being mevatel? You can't be mevatel chametz that you're going to be still using for the next 10 days. What?
If a person does mevatel chametz early, let's say 10 days early, and they start eating matzot 10 days early, is that okay, or is that also not?
No. One thing has nothing to do with the next. There's a custom, halachically, it's forbidden to eat matzah out of Pesach. That's very sharp expressions in the Gemara if you eat. Some people don't eat matzah. I'm talking about Pesach, the matzah. 2 weeks before, our custom is a month before. So it's nothing to do with the Bedikas Chametz. We just don't.